Hello everyone, and welcome to this new Webster Center for Creativity and Innovation keynote, part of the WCCI lecture series. I'm delighted to have with us today, this evening, Professor Kim Halskov from Aarhus University. And just a little bit about the series, maybe some of you know already, we organize about 4 to 6 talks each year. And we invite eminent creativity and innovation researchers coming from a variety of disciplines. And tonight, this evening, we're going to have the pleasure of listening to an expert in design and digital design. So it's going to be very interesting to listen to you, Kim. Kim Halskov is professor in interaction design at the Department of Digital Design, Aarhus University in Denmark. And he's also director of the Center for Advanced Visualization and Interaction, CAVI. He's also co-director of the Center for Digital Creativity, and I can actually put some of the links to these different centers in the chat. He's author of many articles and chapters dedicated to design processes, design space, and design creativity. And he's the co-editor, together with Bo Christensen and Clemens Klokmuse, of this wonderful book, Sticky Creativity, Post-it Note, Cognition, Computers, and Design. And I would have been very happy to pass it around in the audience, but now you can just see it virtually. Maybe I'll put a link also in the chat. And this evening, Kim will talk to us about sticky notes in creative design practice. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Vlad. And I will start taking care of the technical part by sharing my screen. So are we on the front page, sticky notes in creative design practice at your end? That looks good. Thank you so much. Thank you for your feedback, and thank you, Vlad, for this very nice and kind introduction, and in particularly also thank you very much for inviting me to present this this keynote at your Webster Center for Creativity and Innovation. It is really a pleasure. We have got to know Vlad and I for some years, and we have met on and off, and this is an excellent opportunity these days to connect with you guys. So thank you so much. I will. You already have presented my main affiliation and my main position, and of course I will be talking about the subject, sticky notes in creative design practice. But I will also just start with just a little bit about the other kind of research that we are doing in at our CAVI Research Center. It's more like a way of framing that we are interested in design creativity from a process perspective, and we do that through very much experimental design research, building stuff in collaboration with external design partners. So let me just show a couple of those examples here. We work with interaction design. That's my main area of research, and some of our research cases are actually media architecture, and that's actually an excellent arena to explore design creativity, because this is a different kind of interfaces. And what you see here is a project that we did together with the Danish architect Glaveanu, the expo for the pavilion for the Danish Expo in Shanghai. And as you probably noticed, we have this huge display. It is actually 300 meters long and very low resolution. So it's a good example of design channels with some built-in constraints, namely the resolution. If we move down to the corner, we go a little bit down in scale. We are working very much with tabletop interaction design. In this case, is with together with the Lego company. And when you go to the Lego store, you see all the boxes, but you really don't know what is inside. So the idea here is that you can grab a box, put it on the table surface, and then you can actually get to see what is inside the box. This is out actually in more than 100 Lego brand stores in a finals implementation. The other case, which you see here up in the upper right corner, is a project that we have been doing in the domain of cultural heritage communication. You probably all know the famous terracotta warriors, but when they originally was excavated, they were actually gray brownish in color, and you couldn't really see that originally they were actually dressed in very marvelous uniforms. So we created this installation where you, with projection mapping, were able to actually, as a visitor to the museum, color the statue or color the terracotta warrior, and you fix the colors, and then your individual terracotta warrior becomes part of the big crowd, big army on the screen behind you. Last little small example is also for media architecture, built around the greenhouse in my home city, and part of the European Culture of Capital in 2017. So the core idea here is actually plant a seed in this greenhouse, and we have published numerous papers about the design process, about the creative process, how this idea of plant a seed emerged and evolved throughout a design process. So these are key elements of the other kind of day-to-day research we are doing. And in this context, we have a strong interest in creative processes, and a good share of what I'm presenting here today is actually the result from a research project of ours, Creativity in Blended Interaction Spaces, a collaboration between my university and the Copenhagen Business School. My main partner at the Copenhagen Business School here is Bo Christensen, and I want to acknowledge his strong contribution to also what I'm presenting here today, in addition to Sille Appelgaard, also from the business school, from my own university, Peter Dalsgaard, Clemens Klocknemose, and Michael Mose-Biskær. They are all kind of part of the team that was the core team for the Creativity and Blended Interaction project. And as mentioned, a lot of what I'm presenting here is would not have been possible without their brains and hard work. So in this project, we were, when we originally started, we had a broad interest in digital and physical materials. We were interested in social and individual creativity, and particularly Clemens Klocknemose has a strong interest in cross-device interaction, so that was also part of our research interest. With respect to creativity, we were particularly interested in the creativity mechanisms, but also in how design ideas kind of are emerging and evolving through a design process. So sticky notes, they are actually, I would say, almost everywhere. This is actually an image from Tencent's headquarters in Shenzhen. I was for a tour here, and I noticed they have sticky notes everywhere, including on the windows here. Sticky notes are really well known for playing an important role in generation, exploration, and evaluation of creative design ideas. Sticky notes, they are kind of in many ways taken for granted. There is not much research about how sticky notes actually is operating in creative processes. And very early on in the CBIS projects, we kind of got this idea, oh, we should do some research on sticky notes. We really didn't know so much about how they work or how they operated in creative design processes. And that's actually quite interesting because, I mean, sticky notes have a very long history. The first Post-it notes were actually launched by 3M in 1980, and by that time in 1980 they actually had a long history or a long past, because Spencer Silber, he invented this glue or adhesive that actually makes sticky notes possible, that you can actually stick them on and you can remove them and then you can stick them some other place. And his original idea was actually to develop a sticky bookmark. And he actually also, on the business side, filed a patent for the sticky glue here in 1970. So we have the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And the first sticky notes were actually released in April 90. Sorry, in 1980 they were released. Became available in the iconic canary color and in also a limited collection of sizes. The ones probably known as the standard sizes. So that was the very early years, and in 80 they actually make a good business out of this idea. They had a revenue of $2 million US, and by the same time the sticky notes were also released in Canada and in Europe. And a few years later, it was actually the best-selling product of this huge company, 3M. And later on, there was some statistics on which office supplies are the most selling office supply. And among those, you find sticky notes together with Scotch tape and even copy papers, which I would imagine is a top seller, but sticky notes is in that top league. So today there is actually, according to statistics, sold more than 50 billion sticky notes a year, and it is really a huge market. And it's nice to be in a business where you have a very simple, basic product that sells well, then you are pretty good off. Sticky notes is actually, I would say it's part of a family of design materials, which also includes sketches, cards, images, video, 3D models, Arduino technologies. So there are a lot of other design materials. So why are sticky notes so successful or widely applied? Here we have a little video. Well, it's just to flash some of our technology. So let's move on. So sticky notes, what are really the basic qualities? And most of them are actually quite obvious, namely the size and the color. And the size is really kind of, I think, one of the very unique qualities, because you can very easily sketch out, write small elements, small, not carefully thought out elements, snippets of ideas, concepts, things that inspires you. And most importantly, I would say the low price and the small size is really one of the key qualities. And that's not very sophisticated. I think perhaps even more importantly, you have this low entry point. They are easy to use. You don't need to have any instructions. If you want to do sketching or if you want to do video prototypes, then you need to learn it. Here, you don't need to learn it. You just do it. And the sticky notes today are now actually supplemented by a wide variety of sizes and colors. You see here in this little box some of the very large sticky notes. They're almost of the size of an A3 page of paper. So in addition to the original canary yellow, you have all sorts of colors, but still there are some standard post-it colors that you immediately recognize. Then what is really the main difference? I think the stickiness is, of course, really very important. And the stickiness is actually what enables or supports the cognitive process of a creative practice. So you can very easily, due to the size and the stickiness, populate an area with sticky notes. And if you notice that some of the images are not so easy to read, it's because they have been blurred for confidential reasons. So it's not a a flaw with my screen or with your screen. That's basically because I didn't want to disclose the actual content. So you can easily generate a lot of ideas, and it's also very well established that in creativity research that quantity actually breeds quality. And due to the small size and the stickiness, you can easily categorize things. You can easily move the sticky notes. You can create all sorts of clusters and networks and models. And perhaps most importantly, in creativity research, you have this idea of supporting combinational creativity, that you have one element and say, oh, if you combine this element with that element, then you really get something new. And it's a good way of exploring and investigating your material due to this about reconfiguring and repositioning them. Sticky notes also are very important for the social dynamics. You can use the sticky notes through your gestures and your body language to indicate shared attention. And I think also a good quality of sticky notes in many ways is that you can easily work individually and then you can share it with others. You have a smooth way of moving from private thinking on your own and then sharing it with others. And a lot of creativity methods are using sticky notes. It's actually taking advantage of this, that you on your own can sit a little bit thinking out your own ideas, writing it down, and then sharing it with others. So that's very important. So what is on the downside? I think part of what is on the downside is this about archiving. I'm sure many of you have been using sticky notes, and you end up having all those poster boards, and then you are done. What do? You fold them up, you roll them together, and then you take them along, you bring them to your office. And I thank you to my good colleague Christian Dindler. He kindly shared his office with me, as you see down in the left-hand side corner here. I talked to him in some other relation, and then he said, oh, I have a very good example you can use. And I'm more of a cleaning and throw away person, so I don't have so much at the moment in my office, so I had to visit him. So this is one of the critical parts. In a moment I will, or at the end of my talk, I will talk about digitizing sticky notes and boards, and that will solve some of the problems when it comes to archiving. So I mentioned other kinds of design materials here at the beginning. Card-based tools, card-based methods is very common, and sketching is also one of the key creative practices. And here I have and I have to stress, this is really a simplified comparison. That is always what happens when you put things into a table. There will always be someone probably in the audience who will say, oh, what you are writing in line this and that column, so and so, is that really right? And that's a good exercise to challenge this table. But I think it visualizes some of the key qualities of sticky notes compared to other materials. And let's just pick up a few elements of this overview here. Sticky notes are actually very similar to card-based design tools, but what the main difference is actually that when you have sticky notes, for good and for bad, you start out with an empty space. The idea with cards is very often that they have images and text which serve as a source of inspiration for your process, and there are upsides and downsides with both of them. So I would say it's not so much that the one is better than the other. You just have to keep in mind that they are different. Content-wise, cards usually starts with images and text, and on sticky notes you also put text and sketches. One of the key characteristics of both sticky notes and cards is that they actually have a fairly low entry point. It's easy to get started, and Whereas if you do sketching, it really requires expertise or training. Sticky notes in most cases, and this is where I am ready to be challenged, the use of sticky notes generally don't have any rules or specific phase models or procedures. I know there are exceptions, but when it comes to cards, there very much comes together with some card game or some other process that is to facilitate the use of the cards. Cards and sticky notes are really excellent for code design, and sketching is really more like a personal or an individual activity. The CIVIS project, one of the partners at the CIVIS project was a Danish design agency, Designit, and we have known them for many years. They started in my hometown 20 years ago, and now they have been acquired by a very large other international design agency. So I've been visiting them on and off, and I have always noticed they use a lot of sticky notes. They're really in that field. So together with one of my colleagues, Aaron Fisher, we went to the Designit office and conducted a very actually quite quick of a survey of how they are actually using sticky notes. So basically we got in contact with or arranged with two of the lead designers that they would walk us through the building or the space, and then whenever we passed some sticky notes, we did that all the time, we stopped and then they explained to us, what do we see here, this sticky note collection or cluster of sticky notes, what was it used for, and we could conduct a contextual interview and gain insight into the use of those sticky notes. So we recorded a lot of images and also supported the study with a video recording. And you may have noticed that in the footer of some of my slides, I have some references, and we have in more detail reported from this study in the book that Vlad was so kind to show at the beginning of my presentation. So we try to, and we have in other contexts worked with the concept of a design space, which is really, in more general terms, is an opportunity space that you can navigate when you work as a designer. So an opportunity space is actually some aspects that you can consider, and for each aspect you have certain options. So for instance, when you are to use sticky notes, you have to decide with respect to shape, are you using square or rectangular sticky notes, or are you using yellow, pink or orange sticky notes? So what you see here is not the ultimate map of what sticky notes are. It's the mapping of the use of sticky notes at Designit. So looking at this quite huge material, I think we studied around 25 boards with sticky notes. We kind of have identified the shapes and the sizes they're using, and there is not much of a surprise what you see here. The physical characteristics are really the basic characteristics of sticky notes. The context that those sticky notes are put are perhaps more interesting. They put them not only on sticky note boards, but also on pre-printed sheets, whiteboards, even on the glass wall. And they also very often put sticky notes on some other contextual structure or system, for instance, a flowchart or a table. And we also looked into how do people at Designit configure or organize their sticky notes, and they do that in very sophisticated ways. And I will show you some examples in a moment, which probably make more sense than these abstract presentations. But tables, ordered listings, or sorting with respect to topic, or relating one sticky note to another one, a basic strategy. And in order to understand how they are using the sticky notes, we looked at we looked at the content, not at the kind of the content level. That sounds like a contradiction, but more at the format level. What are people putting on the sticky notes? and they are using both text and drawings. They use pens of various colors, and the writing style is both quite schematic, but also using icons or more naturalistic kind of drawings. So let's get something which might be more informative to look at. Here at the top, you can see one of the posters that, or one of the boards that we looked at or analyzed at Designed, and this board is actually a particular kind of board that shows the main process structure when people are at Designed are collaborating with a customer. So what you have at the I need to see if I can move a zoom bar here at the top. Anyhow, don't worry. At the top, you basically see before, during, and after. So that's kind of the main flow of a business process at this company. And what you see to the left is actually 5 orange posters, which identifies key roles: the salesperson, the customer, the design team, the project manager. And at the center of this board, you actually have a flow diagram that illustrates the process throughout a standard project at the company. So you can see who is doing what at which particular point in time. And to the right, you also have a set of orange posters, which refers to before, during, and after. So that's kind of like another cluster of post-its. So it's used for communicating the design process. And at the bottom of the screen that you see now, we have identified with yellow kind of the choices that the designer of this particular board has taken when it comes to the way of using the sticky notes. So for instance, we are using, I hope this is right, only 3 colors: pink, orange, and green. And the contextual system is actually a combination of a flow chart and a table. So this framework that I'm presenting here with the tables, you can actually apply in some of your own cases and use it as a way of mapping out how you yourself or your friends are using post-it notes. If we move one slide ahead, it actually is also remarkable that there is really a consistent way of using handwriting, capitalized, and in black color. So when you look at this table and you look at the board itself, it's really evident that this board is created by a single individual. I'm just checking time again. So if I move one slide ahead, you will get to see kind of a different set of posters, which is much more sophisticated. And I'm not going to detail, but if you glance down to the lower part of the screen here, you can see that there are all sorts of colors of the pen, all sorts of writing styles, and both handwriting and drawing. So it's really evident that these 2 boards are created by multiple people. And I remember or recall that one of the designers that we talked to said that, oh, I very much appreciate that I, from the handwriting, can identify who actually produced this post-it note, which is of relevant when it comes to digitizing sticky notes. So on this slide, you can also get an idea of that this sticky note collection is much more complicated than the previous one. Moving further on, here is another example, and I'm showing this additional example just to illustrate the diversity or show the diversity of the usage of a sticky note at this particular company. You have the combination of printed images, and you have various clusters and various ways of organizing the sticky notes, and they are actually very consistent in their usage of a certain color of sticky notes for headers or labeling clusters, and then the clusters themselves in a different color. So the headings is the the pink ones here, and the clusters are in this case either yellow or light green. So this is very sophisticated usage at this particular company, and I'm not claiming that the company's use of sticky notes is representative. I think it's more interesting in the sense that it's a very diverse and complex use of sticky notes. Just a second, I'm just taking time. Doesn't work. Are you on, Vlad? Could you please give me the time?
Yeah, of course. It's 33. You have at least 5-10 minutes.
Yeah, that's excellent. Okay, so let's move on because another project also actually in collaboration with WCII was actually motivated by our visits to the company and in our interest in design materials. So we actually developed a tool called Cards and Boards, and I'll just very quickly share with you how this tool was developed. We started out with a series of workshops. Some of you might be familiar with the Inspiration Cards workshop, which has 3 phases: inspiration, critique, vision, and implementation. They have those 3 phases, and that was the basic structure we applied with an interest in mapping out or understanding the use of design materials at large, not only sticky notes. And so we had this workshop, and at the first workshop we kind of identified what are really the key challenges in a creative company like WCII. And what they're very concerned about is how to store and retrieve design documentation. And it's always the case that this company in certain cases have a dedicated project room for the large projects, but whereas the smaller projects, they have to share project rooms with a number of other projects, so they just can't leave their stuff between meetings or activities. Collaboration with clients is also a concern, and this about handing over knowledge from designers to those concept designers to graphic designers is also of a challenge. Storing is also a challenge. So we, after that first workshop, we kind of created a set of video scenarios which indicated or suggested ways of solving some of those problems. And one of the ideas was to have this virtual project room. So when you come into your physical space, you can kind of reconfigure the room to be exactly like it was when you left it last time. And this video scenario illustrates the idea. So we go into the room and we have this Arla Food, a Danish food company. You press the button and then your space is exactly like you left it last time. You have all the same posters. Another challenge or interest was how can you actually connect the various devices. And here we have a video. It's not the final implementation, it's just a video scenario. So which illustrates that you have your personal device and then you can move content from your personal device to the large boards, as you see here. And I think we will fast forward a little. Another interest was to support distributed collaboration or collaboration across locations. For instance, collaborating with my city, Grenoble, Warsaw, Copenhagen, or whatever. So when this nice guy of mine put on a poster on the left-hand side in his space, then it actually immediately, depending on internet connections, appear at the other end. So it's kind of like Google Docs, but Google Docs for Post-its. And of course, it works the other way around. So we actually, based on this project or this process, implemented the Cards and Boards system, which is basically a digital implementation of the Cards and Boards, or sorry, of the sticky notes, physical sticky notes. And I have a video here, And originally it was in Danish, and because my identical twin here, oops, this is really not so nice. Do I hear the sound that is on here? Yeah, do.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's
Yeah.
not so good. Just a second. I'll just. The voiceover here is from my practicing. So here we are back again, because I will offer a little bit of voiceover. So what we did here was actually we started from this idea of sticky notes as a little small element, and then we augmented the sticky notes, so you can actually, now you can resize the sticky notes, you can change the color, thank you so much. But we also generalize the sticky notes so that you have not only sticky notes, but you have also other small elements like images. I hope we will get to see this here. So you have like small images, and you can go back to the board. And then we developed based on the ideas of the design company, a particular kind of link card or sticky notes, so you can link actually to a website. So we were really taking advantage of the digitization. And like in the real world, you would like to have more than a single board, so you can split the screen. You can call up a board. This is a board made by one of my colleagues, and so I'll get to have multiple boards at a time, and hopefully, if you be so kind, I can show that we can move sticky notes across the boards. And so this is actually built on top of the Webster platform developed by my colleague Clemens Chokmose. So the idea is that this is web-based, and since it is web-based, you can actually access the boards from any device with a web browser. So if you have a tablet, I have a feeling we'll get to see a tablet in a moment. We have borrowed this tablet, and then I can work on my tablet. I can create a new post-it note on my tablet, which we'll get to see in a second. So I can create a new post-it note, and you probably saw the drop-down menu. I could also create a new image or whatever. And then on the large screen, you can see that if I change the color, of course, it's exactly the same post-it note we get to see on the tablet and on the shared screen. And we have done a number of tests where we have applied this for the purpose of having a design meeting with a big shared screen and the individual tablet. So the individual tablet is like the individual sticky notes, and the large screen is like the whiteboard that you put the sticky notes on. And we are actually coming to the end. As mentioned, what I've been presenting here is very much in collaboration with Bo Christensen from Copenhagen Business School. And we have published a couple of special issues almost 2 years ago, Designing in the Wild, and Designing Across Cultures. And we have an upcoming special section in design studies on sticky notes as design material. And as mentioned, in particular, when I talked about sticky notes as design materials at the very first part, it's in many ways based on my collaboration with Bo Christensen and my British colleague. And if you want to know more about sticky notes, we have a commercial, Sticky Notes Creativity. Vlad was already so kind to flash it for me, and a couple of years ago we were hosting the DTRS conference, and out of that conference came a book called Analyzing Design Thinking, and as you can see at the image, sticky notes plays an important role here. So a number of chapters in that book is also about sticky note cognition and creativity. And Lyndon Ball is one of the editors here, and he's also involved in a paper that Bo and I have for the sticky note special section upcoming, if it gets accepted, I should add. I'm ready to say thank you very much for your attention, and I'll be happy to not only take your questions, but also hear your ideas and your advice and challenges. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kim. I'm going to give you some online applause here. That's fantastic. I remember when I got to visit pre-pandemic, of course, your different centers and how fascinated I was by these digital versions of sticky notes. I think there is so much there and we can think about when it comes to using them for creative purposes, because we use, as you mentioned, we use some of their basic functions and we add to them. So there is a little bit of best of both worlds. Of course, there are always limitations, but this is a fascinating development. Sure. So I'm going to open the floor for questions. You can also write them in the chat if you would like. I know I have my own questions, but I want to be, giving a chance for other people to intervene as well.
Yeah, I think I will stop the sharing because
right. And we can all see.
I have myself here at the center. I can see you all guys. Thank you very much.
Right. So who would like to? Who has any questions at all? Yes, I think we have a hand here. Yusef.
Yes, hello. Thank you so much for this presentation. It was actually very, very interesting. I have a question about the sort of virtual digital post-it notes, in that like one of the big novelties of a physical post-it note is its limitation and how that breeds more ideas. Mm-hmm. So are you scared that, would you, for example, be scared that since we have all these options of resizing and changing fonts and colors on digital sticky notes, that will actually limit how much we produce with them?
That's an excellent question. Also, because we have actually conducted some studies to kind of investigate what is really the difference between the digital sticky notes and the physical sticky notes. And it's actually, for the main part of the process, there is not a huge difference. I think people tend to be more focused when they're working with the sticky notes. They tend to be much better at making connections. But apart from that, there is not we haven't been able to identify a huge difference. We have actually been, to be honest with you, we are among friends, struggled getting some papers accepted because there's not so much of a clear finding yet in the studies we have conducted so far. Together with also Peter Halskov and Webster, we have been studying the way that people are making connections in how much are you referring back to what you did earlier. And there seems to be a difference that with the sticky notes, you tend to relate more extensively to what happened earlier. But coming back to your question, I must admit we haven't studied in detail this about size and rescaling. I know that my colleague Bo Christensen had done a study on the size of design ideas, namely in the sense of how much are you writing. But we haven't studied very much in detail the differences, but we haven't published in detail about that. My understanding is that when you have the typing, you actually write more as opposed to do handwriting. You can put more content on the same space. But when it comes to the differences between the digital and the physical, I think the main advantage of the digital is actually that you can actually store it and you can reopening it in a different context, or you can work distributed. And in one of our studies, we actually had designers working on their tablets or on their laptop, preparing stuff for the main session. And then you brought in your stuff and you could share it with others. That's one of the differences. But this about archiving and sharing it with others, I think that is this is where the main difference is. So it's more like before and after than during that the main differences comes present.
Right. Excellent. Thank you very much. Anyone else? Anyone curious about these very, very recent studies and developments? It'll be wonderful to have one of these boards if we could.
I'm sure we can if you, Vlad, or others are, I would say, seriously interested in using the cards and boards and would like to establish collaboration with us, I mean, it is web-based, so it is actually possible.
I think that my students, because it's my students who are now, Alexia also will have a question, are very animated, so it's even more of a user confirmation if you want. Alexia.
Hello, so is there anything you would like to change with your sticky notes? Are you doing any upgrades or any ideas you have and you add after?
Yeah, I think what we would like to do, and my colleague Peter Halskov, he has a new project, and he's actually working on one of the things that we would like to do, namely make it easier to take images of stuff and then easily integrate them into your sticky boards. That's an area of improvement that we considered also during the development phase here. But the nice thing is actually that it's built on our own platform, so we have a lot of technical opportunities for improving it. And I could also share with you that a point of critique that has been raised against card on board is that how is it different from already available tools? And there are similar tools, but the main difference is actually that we have developed it ourselves, so we can actually do what you are asking, Alexia. We can experiment with new elements or using it in new ways. My own personal interest that has not been implemented yet is actually to find a way to document the process, to track the kind of, you can, of course, you can do a screen recording, but it would be really nice to have a way to visualize which post-it notes were moved or created at which point in time. That would enable us, not so much from a design perspective, but more from a research perspective, to perhaps answer some of the question that Joseph raised a moment ago. What is really the nature of this tool? So to document or to capture the process and to analyze the process, I'm pretty sure you can investigate areas of your research interest.
Okay.
And also in continuation of what we talked about a moment ago, I would like to say to all of you that if you happen to be in Denmark somewhere and you would like to come and visit, you are always welcome. And I would also say we all very much welcome both junior and senior visitors. And the nice thing about Denmark is not so much the weather, but the nice thing is that we actually have a very good infrastructure for having visitors, and it's not an extensive process to come as a visitor. I'm sure if one of you say, oh, can I come for 2 weeks? I don't need to ask my boss. I'll just say, come, and I will find an empty space where you can sit.
This is an open invitation.
You are very much welcome.
No,
Okay,
that'd be great. That'd be great. I mean, we definitely will discuss these possibilities. I myself am interested, so maybe at some point we can make a delegation.
We will definitely have
trouble with me as well.
Set up an exchange program.
John, you're next.
Yes, thanks, Vlad. Thanks very much, Kim. That was really interesting. I was just thinking that the post-it notes are almost an icon, a symbol of the ephemeral, and they're also, apart from the possibility of recognizing your colleague's handwriting, as you described in that example, they're also unauditable. So the things you write down on them have a kind of very low threshold of commitment, as it were, to the idea. And whereas, you know, things on the web last forever. And I wonder whether that changes the dynamic of engagement in a kind of workshop type process that uses digital versus physical.
Yeah. Definitely, there is an important difference if you compare sticky notes to, say, sketches. I mean, if you write a nice sketch, you really put a lot of work and love and hard work into creating the sketch, and you're more careful about the sketching. And I would also say, for good or for bad, when you write your sticky notes with conventional physical handwriting, you're probably not as careful about formulating it as you are writing a text or writing a scenario. And I have never thought about your question before in that way, but your question makes me think that perhaps when you are typing it, you are more careful about your thinking and your writing, because then it's really, everybody can read it. You can't excuse that, oh, this was just very fast. So it's, when you use this concept of ephemeral, it's not as ephemeral. It's more like, it's more cut in stone. It's not cut in stone, but it seems to be cut more in paper than the handwriting.
Yes, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
Which could influence people's engagement in a kind of free flow of creative process. It depends, I suppose, on the task. If you're creating a detailed workflow, like in one of your examples, then precision might be absolutely essential. Whereas if it's some kind of brainstorming thing, yeah.
And I also think most people can actually, I think many people are much quicker at making some handwritten notes than typing it on your computer. I'm very rarely use handwriting, but I actually have a notebook here in case there was something that I want to remember, because I'm sure I can much quicker scribble it down than I can do on my keyboard.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also sure that when I write on my keyboard, I'm much more careful. But we haven't studied in detail the difference between typing and handwriting. If you know of any who has studied that, I would love to know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Sean, and thanks, Kim. So final questions, reflections. Yeah, wow.
I do have a second question.
Yes, please.
Sorry. No, but it's interesting. Like, since you've developed this sticky notes thing, is there any domains that is using it, like hospitals, I don't know, or some jobs are using your thing to help themselves?
In my own work, I do not have a specific domain that I'm working in, except cultural heritage communication or urban computing. But I would also say that even though I do use sticky notes, I'm not claiming that sticky note is the ultimate solution. And just as a little anecdote, as a follow-up on that, sticky note is not everything. When I did this study at Design It, I wanted to do a comparative study. And one of my PhD students, Rune Nielsen, he has a very cool design company called Collision. It's also a very cool name. And I called him and his colleague and said, oh, would it be possible that I can come and document the way you are using sticky notes? And then Andrea said, oh, you're very welcome. It's an easy task. We don't use sticky notes because they are very much using tangible materials and 3D models and all sorts of sophisticated simulations and doing some really, really very exciting stuff. So I would say thank you very much also for having the opportunity to present here and for all your feedback. And if you search on Kim Halskov Aarhus University, I'm sure you can find both the CAVI website, and the CAVI website actually has a sub-page for the CIBIS projects, and part of that sub-page there is a collection of teaching packages actually targeted more junior designers, even school kids. And what is nice about that is actually perhaps the list of references, and it's not only our own, but a lot of core references within design creativity. So I hope you can find your way through my website, and if you can't, drop me a mail, and I'll be happy to help you out.
Right. I mean, I already sent everyone in the chat links to the two centers and to the book. And if you want, you can type in your email, Kim, perhaps.
Yeah.
And we're drawing to a close. I just want to make one last comment. You know, I've been reading the book, and it's absolutely excellent. And I've been fascinated from the very beginning with the title, Sticky Creativity. And actually, the first thing it kind of took me to were these kind of epidemiology of knowledge, cognitive psychology views around the stickiness of some forms of knowledge. So knowledge that sticks is knowledge that is transmitted. So it for me, it's fascinating to think of sticky creativity as that creativity that gets somehow pinned down, at least for the moment, before you mess it up again and work with it. And in the moment of becoming sticky and heavy, you can use it actually. So that there is an interesting idea here, because we often think of creativity as something very ephemeral and something very personal and something very, but the stickiness of it is a wonderful metaphor. How did you choose just finally the title? What was it? Were you thinking of I know, making these kind of broad claims about creativity as well?
I must say that the title was invented by Bo Christensen, and I never really thought it was so brilliant as you are presenting it.
Well, now you know it is.
So it's to credit Bo, but I think it's actually a good idea. It's an excellent point, also related to what the gentleman raised earlier about ephemerality. It's not ephemeral. It's actually not ephemeral. It's actually very sticky. So it's a good paper. Is sticky notes sticky, or are they ephemeral? Yeah, or that's not a good way to phrase it, but there is a good source for a paper or the next book.
Absolutely. Well, we definitely want to stay in touch, and thank you so much, Kim. And I think all of us, will take on board your invitation. Maybe we'll all come to visit you in Denmark when transport is back on. But thank you so much again, and thank you everyone for attending this talk. We will see. We recorded it. We're going to stop soon recording, and we'll see what we make with the recording. But anyway, if you're interested in these ideas, do contact Kim. He's always very, very generous with his time and his expertise. So thank you again. Have a wonderful rest of the day, the evening, and I will keep you posted about future events with WCCI.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And make sure to share the chat, because then there are some links, and I just want to say hello to Patricia. You're welcome.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks Celia as well. Bye.
Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.